Without profit, just like oxygen, we will die. Our business will die. Profit is the oxygen of your business. When I first started my business, I didn't really realize how crucial profit was, because what would happen is I would generate profit in my business, and my first instinct was to then go and reinvest it and plow it back into my marketing efforts or plow it back into other aspects of my business. And what would happen is, because marketing is an ongoing process of testing and figuring out what's working and what's not working, I started to bleed my business dry. My profit margins started to shrink up, and then I realized that we weren't as profitable as I thought. And so today I have created a framework that allows us to continue to market both our business and our clients' businesses. And it allows us to market to ensure that we're profitable in everything that we do, because without profit, just like oxygen, we will die. Our business will die. And so I personally, our team personally, does not believe in marketing if it's not focused around generating profits. And so before we get started, what I do want to say is, if you haven't listened to the very first episode of the Ecommerce Alley podcast, I recommend you go back to it. Because in that episode, I talk about something that we call the MOS, the Marketing Operating System. And the reason this is important is because today what I'm covering is the 3 rules of profitable marketing that is going to be your gauge, your measuring stick against every step in the marketing operating system. So if you go listen to it, you'll learn there are 3 levels to the marketing operating system. And in each one of those levels, what you're going to apply against those are the rules that I'm going to teach you today, because we want to make sure that as we ascend through the 3 levels of the marketing operating system, we want to make sure that we're profitable along the way. So let's get started with the very first rule. The very first rule is simple. If it's not trackable, you don't do it. But Josh, iOS 14 and iOS 15 and what? No more cookies and third party, and it doesn't matter. There was a guy in 1911 by the name of David Ogilvy. He was considered the father of advertising. And David Ogilvy helped companies and organizations that you probably use, know, and love today, whether that is Disney or Coca-Cola, or it doesn't matter what it is. He has worked or probably worked with some of the largest companies that you use every day and that you love. And he helped them make billions of dollars. And back in the day, billions of dollars was a lot more than it is today. So that's actually billions and billions of dollars that he helped them generate. And in the efforts that they did, they were still able to track without digital, without the internet. There were still things they were able to do to track the results of those efforts. And so what I see a lot of businesses and brands, and it's really common in the marketing world, especially the agency world, and this is probably one of my largest pet peeves, is that people will justify their marketing dollars in the name of brand awareness or activities that don't generate profit, but we feel good about ourselves, so we're going to do it in the name of reach and brand awareness or whatever that might be. And so really it's kind of like a vanity piece. And so I don't believe that you should be running marketing if you're under $25 million in revenue for anything other than profit-driving activities. And even beyond that, you have to focus entirely on profit-driving activities. And so it doesn't have to be purchases. And I want to talk about this because if we're tracking the results of what we're doing, and if it's not trackable, we don't do it, then the question becomes, okay, well, what are we tracking? Well, you should always be running marketing campaigns with the goal of driving purchases. But sometimes you're going to run campaigns that are a step before that. You might be trying to drive leads. You might be trying to grow your email list. This is really common in Q4. We recommend building a wait list for example, a Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And so you can build a wait list of people who want to get VIP exclusive early bird access to your Black Friday deals before Black Friday. And so you might be driving leads to that. So purchases is not your metric, leads are. But you need to be able to track the leads, because if not, you're not going to be able to know what's working and what's not working. And so what you need to do is you need to establish what that measurement of success or what that metric is that you're going to track, and you have to make sure that it's trackable. Now, when it comes to tracking from a digital standpoint, certain things are possible, certain things can be tricky, but the reality is, even with a little bit of manual work, you can get pretty close on your tracking. It's never going to be 100%. You will never be able to track all the marketing efforts you do 100%, but you can get 80%, 90% tracking accuracy. And in the marketing world, we call this, another word is attribution. We're trying to attribute our sales, or we're attribute our results to a particular marketing outcome. And going back, if we were to look back 50 years and say they didn't have digital marketing, they didn't have pixels and cookies and things like that, they were still able to track coupons. They were still able to bring flyers into buildings, and people had to bring those flyers to the event to get the special deal, or they would have a certain phone number on a billboard, or a certain number that they used for a campaign in a radio ad. And so the reality is, you can track more than you think, but I think that we just get lazy, and it's a lot easier to throw up our hands and say tracking isn't possible and attribution is all over the place and it's really difficult, so I'm just not going to make that a priority for me. But you need to. You need to, because without knowing what works, you're going to amplify and try to scale the wrong thing. And I'll give you a real world example of this. I'll give you a real world example of this. We actually had a client whose attribution within their ad campaigns was not set up properly. And unfortunately, we didn't know this when we started running this campaign. And the attribution, the tracking, was not set up properly. So first, you need to be tracking. But the second thing is you have to make sure that it's tracking properly and accurately. And we ran a 3-day holiday sale. And we spent a little more than it was almost $8,000 in ad spend just on Facebook during those 3 days. And our tracking, our attribution was showing us $24,000, a little more than that in sales. So it was like a 3.1, 3.15 return on ad spend, which for them, that's great. That was on cold traffic that we were running, and that's wonderful. We had really great 3-day weekend. We're like, okay, we're happy with this. We had a 3x return on ad spend, especially when we know that tracking is always a little bit less and it underreports just from the things that have been happening in the iOS world lately. And so we were really happy with it. But as we dug deeper, we found out that the attribution was off, and that it was almost doubling the conversions. There were 2 different pixels, and there were all these different things that were happening. And so what happened was we amplified something that we didn't want to amplify. So over those 3 days, the budget started, I think it was like $1,000 a day, and then we bumped it to like $2,500, and then ended at like over $3,000 a day in that 3rd day. And so we amplified something that was not good. But if we had proper tracking, and if we had tracking and it was correct, we would have amplified better things and would have had better results. And so just like anything in marketing, you take your lessons, you learn, you take the punches to the face, and you move on. So you have to track what you do to attribute the sales to your efforts. And then the second thing is you have to make sure that it's tracking properly, because marketing is an amplification. And if you are tracking, you'll be able to amplify the right things. If you do not track your results tangibly, then you're going to amplify crap. You're going to amplify the wrong thing. And so that's why tracking is so important. So whenever we're looking at any form of marketing campaign, whether it's email, even social, or it's SEO, or it's paid advertising, whatever that is, we need to make sure that it's tracking. And we believe that if you can't track it, you shouldn't do it. Now, if you're Coca-Cola and you're doing $100 billion a year or $50 billion a year, and you're an enormous leading brand on the planet, then sure, you can have Coca-Cola signs up at baseball fields and t-ball fields and things that will be very difficult to track outcomes of. You'll be able to do that. That's fine. But the reality is most of us are not at that point, and you should always make sure that your efforts are 100% to your greatest ability trackable. Sometimes they'll fall